afternoon, Chag Sameach. It's Monday, the 5th of October, and this is IBA News broadcasting from Jerusalem. Israeli Air Force jets struck a Hamas terror site inside Gaza early this morning in response to last night's firing of a Palestinian rocket into southern Israel. The rocket landed in open territory in the Eshkol Regional Council, causing no injuries or damage. The IDF confirmed this morning's air raid in the Hamas-run enclave, stressing that the army holds the terror group responsible for any rocket fire emanating from the Gaza Strip. The state of high alert in Jerusalem continued today as police beefed up their presence in and around the capital. In the wake of recent terror attacks, an additional 600 officers have been deployed across the city, raising the number of forces on guard to over 1,000. Police reported sporadic clashes throughout the day in the area of East Jerusalem, but no injuries were reported. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is set to convene the Inner Security Cabinet later this evening at the end of the Simchat Torah holiday to discuss further ways to combat the latest wave of violence across Jerusalem and the West Bank. Last night, upon his return from the U.S., the Prime Minister held a meeting with his top security officials, including Defense Minister Moshe Ya'alon, Public Security Minister Gilad Erdan, IDF Chief of Staff Gadi Eisenkot, and the head of the Shin Bet Security Service, Yoram Cohen. At the end of the nearly 4-hour session, the Prime Minister said Israel was waging a fight to the death against Palestinian terror. Netanyahu announced that as part of a new set of punitive measures, he instructed security forces to speed up the demolition of terrorist homes, expand the use of administrative detention against Palestinian rioters, beef up the presence of security forces in Jerusalem and the West Bank, and ban those who incite to terror from the Old City and the Temple Mount. Defense sources close to the Prime Minister said the latest spate of violence pointed to an escalation, but not the start of a third Palestinian uprising known as an intifada. Sporadic clashes between Palestinian rioters and security forces continued today across the West Bank, around Hebron and Ramallah. No IDF soldiers were injured. In the city of Tulkarem, hundreds of Palestinians held a funeral for an 18-year-old Palestinian who was shot dead during clashes with Israeli troops last night. The man was identified as Huzaifa el-Suleiman from the village of Bala and was killed after a Hamas-organized mob of some 200 Palestinians assaulted an IDF roadblock on the edge of Tulkarem. The army said the group hurled stones and firebombs at the troops and rolled burning tires at the checkpoint. IDF soldiers opened fire at 3 rioters seen throwing firebombs. The Palestinians said at least 4 protesters were wounded in the exchange, including Suleiman. Others were treated for smoke inhalation and injuries from rubber bullets. In other developments, IDF forces entered the village of Surda north of Ramallah overnight for the second time. They searched the home of Muhaned Shafiq, the terrorist who stabbed to death 2 Israelis on Saturday in Jerusalem's Old City. As they left, the forces were pelted with stones and firebombs by residents of the village. There were no reported injuries. Palestinians' report said the family had removed their belongings, fearing Israel would demolish their home. Meanwhile, the Palestinian Ma'an news agency reports that Israel is prepared to return the body of Fadi Alun, the terrorist who was killed by police in Jerusalem early Sunday after he attacked a Jewish teenager with a knife, but it is setting conditions. According to the report, Israel is insisting the funeral for Alun be held at the Shuafat cemetery, and no more than 70 family members can participate. Israel allegedly is also requiring a 200,000 shekel deposit to ensure the conditions are upheld. The condition of Adele Bennett, the 22-year-old widow of Aaron Bennett Banita, who was killed in the stabbing attack Saturday night, has improved, and her life is no longer in danger. She is hospitalized in the intensive care unit at Hadassah Ein Kerem, where she is conscious and breathing without a respirator. Physicians said she is in moderate to serious condition, but stable. The couple's 2-year-old son, who suffered gunshots to his legs, is also improving, and he is now in moderate condition. He was transferred from the Shaarei Tzedek Medical Center to Hadassah Ein Kerem Hospital to be next to his mother. Amid calls on the Prime Minister from among his right-wing party to take tougher measures against terrorists, many on the left are urging Netanyahu to step down. Dozens of protesters, including labor lawmakers, gathered outside the Prime Minister's residence, demanding that he take responsibility for the deteriorating security situation and resign.
Action is being taken by the government to protect the people of Jerusalem. It will be based on a much harder and harsher security measures on the one hand, and on the other hand, to reach an agreement between us and the Palestinian people.
Later tonight, hundreds of residents from Judea and Samaria are expected to also protest outside the Prime Minister's residence, where they intend to hold the holiday's traditional Hakafot ceremony, walking in a circle with the Torah scroll, celebrating the receiving of the scripture by the people of Israel. The group intends to call on the Prime Minister to take harsher steps against terrorists and provide them with bolstered security measures. UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon has once again urged both Israel and the Palestinians to maintain calm and refrain from a dangerous escalation of violence. Ban issued a statement strongly condemning the violence that left 4 Israelis dead in the latest spate of terror attacks in Jerusalem and the West Bank. He said he was deeply troubled by statements from Palestinian terror groups, including Hamas, which praised the attacks, and urged all leaders to denounce violence and incitement and do all they can to avoid further escalation. For his part, PA President Mahmoud Abbas has called on the UN to provide international protection to the Palestinians in the face of recent violence. Abbas reportedly spoke by phone with the UN Secretary General and urged him to act to stop what he called Israeli provocations before things get out of control. Abbas is still maintaining his deafening silence over the 2 recent terror attacks in which 4 Israelis were killed and has failed to express any condemnation or sorrow. In Syria, ISIS state fighters have followed through with their promise and blown up an iconic arch in the ancient city of Palmyra. Reports from Syria said the Arch of Triumph was pulverized by the ISIS fighters who control the city. The arch was built by the Romans and had stood for some 2,000 years at the site, recognized by UNESCO as one of the most important cultural centers of the ancient world. ISIS rebels captured Palmyra from troops loyal to President Bashar al-Assad in May and have been deliberately destroying the well-preserved ancient monuments, saying they represented a heretic pagan culture. Back here at home in more local news, 15-year-old Maor El-Makayas was stabbed to death overnight in Kiryat Gat in what appears to be a brawl that got out of hand between 2 groups of teenagers. The incident took place in the city's Shoftim Park. Medics arrived to evacuate the critically wounded boy for medical treatment at Barzilai Hospital in Ashkelon, but efforts to save him failed, and they were forced to pronounce him dead. 2 suspects fled the scene and were detained several hours after the stabbing following a police search. In a separate incident, a 30-year-old man was stabbed by masked assailants in Eilat and is in moderate condition. Officials are investigating the circumstances of that event. In Mevaseret Zion, near Jerusalem, firefighting crews battled flames that broke out at a local synagogue overnight. The roof of the temple completely collapsed, but no one was hurt. Firefighters rushed inside to rescue the Torah scrolls, which only sustained slight damage to their coverings. Crews worked for over 2 hours to extinguish the blaze, which is believed to have been caused by an electrical failure. An investigation into the incident has been launched. Ironically, the fire occurred on the day that the Jewish people were given the Torah. An estimated 50,000 people enjoyed the last day of the Simchat Torah holiday, which concludes a series of Jewish festivals this month, by visiting the country's parks and nature reserves. Water attractions in the north drew in large crowds, as many headed for the beach or other popular spots, such as Tel Dan, the Banyas, and the Ein Gedi Oasis in the Judean desert. Turning to the forecast, and a slight drop in temperatures is predicted tomorrow, with the possibility of light rain showers in the north and center of the country. Here are the highs and lows for the next 24 hours at home and abroad.